Hello everyone, welcome to yet another day in this The Clown Decade, and this video is absolutely going to be showing you how things are getting worse under Labour. There is absolutely no doubt about it whatsoever. It is ridiculous what the British people have to endure under Keir Starmer, which I'm seeing more and more people call him Keir Starlin, Herr Starmer, just being a dictator of the most moronic height I think we have ever seen in politicians. He's managed to kill the trust meme, for God's sake, and this whole Chagos thing is exactly why. So, for a start, after weeks of saying, oh, China actually don't like the Chagos deal, China don't like it, Russia hate it as well, all our enemies are against it, and wouldn't you know it, Nigel Farage is on that side, well, the Telegraph can report this. China backs Starmer's Chagos deal. Great. Prime Minister offered massive congratulations by Beijing despite his attempts to distance Ireland from Far Eastern superpower. The conspiracy theories from the right wing yet again proven to just be true. It happens more often than the leftists think. So Beijing's ambassador to Mauritius talked up the deal in a speech on Tuesday after Sir Keir signed away the Chagos Islands and agreed to pay Mauritius £30 billion over 99 years. I don't want to get into the whole economics of it yet. There's so much worse to talk about on that subject. Huang Shifang told guests at the Chinese embassy that her government offered massive congratulations on the deal and that China fully supports Mauritius' attempt to safeguard national sovereignty of islands that are 3,000 miles away from them and have never been under Mauritius sovereignty. She also confirmed that Mauritius would soon join Beijing's Belt and Road Initiative, despite claims from the UK government that Eastern African island nation was not under Chinese influence. The relationship between Mauritius and China has been a point of contention for Sir Keir, who faced accusations he was giving away British territory to an ally of one of the UK's enemies. The Chagos Islands, known in the UK as the British Indian Ocean Territory, host the Diego Garcia military base, which is jointly used by the British and US forces. Under the terms of the PM's deal, announced last week, the UK will pay billions of pounds to rent back the military base after sovereignty of the islands have been transferred to Mauritius. I still can't find anyone who is defending this beyond effectively trying to say, well, the UN said we had to, which is just one of the most stupid reasons to have done this, and why people absolutely hate Keir Starmer. Starmer obviously has been defending this position, but all his arguments get contradicted by the Chinese government just days later when their ambassador welcomed the deal, and according to the local newspaper La Mauritian, Ms Huang told party guests on Tuesday that China offered massive congratulations to Mauritius for securing their disputed territory with the UK. Dame Priti Patel, the Shadow Foreign Secretary, told the Telegraph once again Keir Starmer has been caught peddling a lie. This is, of course, a deal that the Tories actually initiated, but we'll ignore that for now. He claimed that those who opposed the mad plan to surrender Chagos Islands were in league with hostile powers, whilst himself handing over control of our own sovereign territory to a nation firmly in China's grasp. And now China itself has welcomed the deal, knowing that Labour weakened our national security is to their benefit, and Starmer must apologise and retract his baseless slander, because, yeah, technically he could be investigated for lying to Parliament, which is part of the reason, by the way, that Boris Johnson got completely ruined. A Mauritian government statement said that the Chinese ambassador pointed to Mauritius's firm adherence to the One China policy. Oh God. The political doctrine that Taiwan is part of China, and drew comparisons between China's dispute with Taiwan and Mauritius' dispute with the UK. Oh, so not only have you ruined everything, you have also emboldened China. Thank God for Keir Starmer. The government statement said she commended the recent achievement regarding the Chagos archipelago. The Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs did not mention the Chagos Islands in its own statement, but said China expects Mauritius to join the Belt and Road Initiative as soon as possible and work together to promote the building of an all-weather China-Africa community with a shared future in a new era. They're going to build a base there. And not only that, but what has effectively happened is we are giving Mauritius $30 billion over 100 years. That is effectively 100 years' worth of the UK effectively siphoning money through Mauritius straight to China. And guess who's paying for it? You are, assuming you're not on benefits and actually work. This is going to be one of those things in the history books that effectively people are going to be asking, why was there not large-scale unrest about this? Effectively, you're being robbed. And I do mean that quite literally, because in the next article, because Starmer's Chagos surrender will fund tax cuts for Mauritians, island nation's $30 billion windfall from the UK will also help it raise minimum salaries and pay off national debt. Yes, this is all while our taxes are being increased to literally the highest ever, while unemployment is rising. Something stupid like 100,000 people are no longer on payee, which is effectively in official employment. Effectively what's happened is that Labour have crippled our economy so that they can effectively massively boost Mauritius's. You know, 30 billion is over double the Mauritian GDP. Effectively, they are promising to triple Mauritius's economic output by siphoning your money to them. And you're apparently just supposed to believe that China isn't in love with this and that actually it's for the interest of the British. These people will non-stop lie to you, and they are in power for another 3 or 4 years. So the Mauritian government has said that it would use almost 500 million in payments under the terms of the Chagos agreement to pay off its national debt. Oh my god. Let's just put that into perspective. That is about 2% of the money we're sending them. Just under, actually. That's just to pay off their national debt. This will allow ministers to abolish income tax entirely for 81% of employed Mauritians and raise minimum salaries. Oh, I don't even care, I'm keeping that in. I'm just so depressed by this whole thing. I am yet to find anyone who can seriously defend this, beyond just appealing to international law, appealing to the Whitehall NPC meme of, oh, well, the ECHR, Human Rights Act, UN, international law, whatever, say we have to do it this way. It's as Dominic Cummings constantly says. They will just do things for the honour of whatever the international community say. And that apparently means that we effectively completely bail out an island nation and subsidise their existence, while they are a vassal of China. We're going to get nothing back for this. What do we get back for this? Basically nothing. Oh, we get a US-UK joint base that we already owned. And because a court that the US isn't even a part of made some noise, we decided to just... I don't even know how to describe this other than shoot ourselves in the face. So Keir's been criticised over the deal, which will cost the UK up to 30 billion over a 99-year period, including rent payments, to use a joint US-UK military base on the Chagos Islands and create a pot of development spending for Mauritius. And people are wondering why the US were in favour of this deal. It's because they don't have to pay us for the joint base anymore, we just pay the whole bill. That seems to be the reason. Tory and Conservative MPs have said the surrender of the islands, which have been owned by the UK since before Mauritius was granted independence in 1986, and was unnecessary and expensive. Yep. The terms of the deal include rent payments of 165 million a year for the next 3 years for Diego Garcia military base, which have been used for bombing runs by Britain and America in the Middle East. Mauritian leaders celebrated the deal as decolonialisation, and that's in the official paperwork of this too, of the Chagos Islands, which lie at the centre of the Indian Ocean and are uninhabited except for military personnel. They did used to be inhabited, however, and we kicked all the natives off. So Navin Ramgoolam, the Mauritian Prime Minister, has now announced that the money paid by the UK will help Mauritius cut taxes so that 81% of people in African island nation will not pay any income tax. I am so jealous. I am so jealous I cannot even begin to tell you how envious I am. And again, this is partly paid for by money that I earn. It comes despite warnings that Britain's faced tax rise in Rachel Reeves' budget this autumn, don't worry, we'll get into that, which is now thought to contain a black hole tens of billions of pounds large. Yeah, they are really going to be regretting calling the Tory black hole what it is, because borrowing already, they went into the overhead by about 20 billion, and it's basically all because they crippled the economy. I'm not even joking. The Mauritian reforms were announced in a budget speech by Mr Ramgoolam last Wednesday, when he said the UK's Chagos payments for the next 3 years will be used to help pay off the country's national debt, which has reached 90% of GDP. Oh god. It's one of our biggest public spending issues, by the way. Something like 20 billion or so is spent every year just to pay off our national debt. You know, that is not good, especially because it keeps getting ever higher, the amount we're borrowing, and not only that, but it's getting more expensive to borrow, so that is going to just exponentially grow, and yet here we are paying off another country's debt because, well, we are run by the biggest morons alive. He said that to reach long-term debt levels of 60%, the government would adjust both the expenditure side of the revenue side of the budget and raise the minimum salary before any employee pays income tax to £8,703 a year. That increase of 28% will scrap income tax entirely for 44,000 people and reduce levies on all other earners. As a result of the measures I've introduced, 81% of employees in our country will not pay any income tax, he said, adding that he had also decided to cut VAT on some food products. After 3 years, the British payments for the Chagos Islands will be used for a future fund to create wealth for future generations. We're subsidising this completely. You, British person listening to this, are paying for this. While, as mentioned, your taxes will be increasing, your job security is getting worse, and basically anyone who's productive in the country is effectively looking to move. Literally anywhere else. So yeah, as mentioned, tax rise warning after higher than expected UK borrowing. We are borrowing to siphon money to Mauritius so that they can pay off their debt. And again, you are paying in excess for it. Highest borrowing since the war, nearly over 100%. That only happens in wartime when we're not even at war. Taxes higher than they were at World War II. Again, typical of a wartime period, but apparently we're not at war. This is just how bad the public finances have been. This is how bad the Tories have been for 14 years. This is how bad Labour are being right now. And I'm being told by people on the internet that Robert Jenrick's actually the way forward. Rupert Lowe, who looks like he's going to be joining the Tories or possibly joining Ben Habib's party. We don't know yet, but if he is going to join the Tories, he's joining the team that are standing by their record, albeit half-heartedly. It wasn't like Boris, where effectively there was a grovelling apology for the way things have been run for years. Everyone's just trying to ignore that. And I just find that ridiculous. So, higher than expected government borrowing figures have increased the prospect of Chancellor Rachel Reeves raising tax in the autumn, experts say. Again, this is at a time as well when they are raising the winter fuel payments back more or less to where they were. Still means tested, but it's a means test that's above medium wage. So, yeah, I would imagine a lot of them are still going to get it. Which I'm only against insofar as they're not making any other sort of cuts from the looks of it, unless we get surprises in the autumn budget. Which again I can't see happening because they got so absolutely rolled over when they did make the cuts that they made. So I can't imagine them trying to make the cuts again. Borrowing the difference between spending and tax income, thank you BBC, was £20.2 billion in April, up £1 billion from the same month last year, official figures showed. It's the fourth highest April figure since monthly records began in '93, and analysts said it could mean Reeves will struggle to meet her first self-imposed rule on spending and borrowing, in that effectively she has a fiscal headroom and does her best to stay within that fiscal headroom. She didn't manage it because it collapsed. Ruth Gregory, Capital Economics Deputy Chief UK Economist, said poor start to the financial year meant tax rises were starting to feel inevitable. And again, the tax rise that we already have been absolutely horrific for employment. She said weaker economic growth forecasts over the next few months was likely to hit tax receipts, adding to pressure on government finances. Wow, you're telling me the Laffer curve exists? I'm always told by leftists that it doesn't. With the PM announcing a partial U-turn on the cut to winter fuel payments, the dilemma faced by the Chancellor over how to deal with increased spending pressures in an environment of low economic growth and high interest rates hasn't gone away. Matt Swannell, Chief Economic Advisor to EY Item Club, said, talk of the reinstatement of some winter fuel payments and the likely need to spend more on defence will further increase the pressure for tax rises. Oh, God. And the Chagos Islands, man. Don't forget Chagos. On Wednesday, PM Keir Starmer will announce plans to ease cuts to winter fuel payments in a U-turn following mounting political pressure in recent weeks. In her October budget, Reeves has introduced £40 billion in tax increases, the largest since '93. However, at the time she pledged there will be no additional tax rises beyond those already announced. Well, that's not happening anymore, is it? It can't happen. There's no choice. Your life is just going to be effectively work for the state so that they can not spend it back on infrastructure and other things that would benefit you. Instead, it's just being siphoned off elsewhere to, say, Mauritius and to mobility cars for people who've lived in the country for 2 years. Anyway, on top of all this, obviously, the international community was constantly the reason that Starmer and Lammy gave for why this ceding of sovereignty had to happen. Anyway, now the international community hate them. Agreement between Mauritius and the UK fails to guarantee rights of Chagossians, says UN expert. Great, so the UN don't even think this deal was good enough. The recently signed agreement between the UK and Mauritius fails to guarantee the protected rights of the Chagossian people, including their right to return to Diego Garcia, effective remedy and reparations of their cultural rights, UN experts said today. This is all a pretty stupid reason to stop the deal, but hell, I would take it. On 22 May 2025, the UK and Mauritius signed a bilateral agreement to return sovereignty over the Chagos archipelago, including Diego Garcia, to Mauritius, to complete the decolonisation of Mauritius following years of negotiation and international pressure, including from International Court of Justice and the General Assembly. The experts said that by maintaining a foreign military presence of the UK and the US on Diego Garcia and preventing the Chagossian people from returning to it, the agreement appears to be a variant with the Chagossian rights to return, which also hinders their ability to exercise their cultural rights in assessing their ancestral lands from which they were expelled. So it's still a stupid reason to have an argument about this. You know, the US-UK military base obviously takes precedent over this sort of thing, but it's so funny. Oh, this wasn't actually good enough because we think the UK and US base actually needs to go so that these people can return to their, homeland that effectively will be completely unrecognisable to when they saw it, because effectively when they were there it was a bunch of, I think, coconut plantations. Well, now it's all a military base for stealth bombers to fly to and from. It also raised serious questions about whether the foreseen £40 million trust fund, which remains subject of a yet-to-be-adopted regulation, would comply with the right of the Chagossian people to effective remedy and adequate, effective and prompt reparation, including restitution, compensation, rehabilitation, satisfaction and guarantee of non-repetition. What I find so funny about this is, again, the whole point was to effectively appease the international community, and now the international community is effectively saying actually having a base there, which was the most important thing for the US, is actually against any sort of rights that we should be discussing with the Chagossians. So it kind of makes sense that they were completely ignored by Labour when they were doing this deal. And what's so funny is that this whole decolonisation narrative is being picked up by people like, well, Priti Patel. Shadow Foreign Secretary Dame Priti Patel appeared on GB News to explain her parliamentary bill aimed at blocking the government's Chagos Islands sovereignty deal. This touches on sovereignty of the British Indian Ocean territory, the Chagossian community in the UK who are clearly British and want to remain British, and have not been consulted about this by the appalling government. The bill specifies that the Chagos archipelago falls under British sovereignty and that this cannot be negotiated away without parliamentary approval, which you would have thought so, at the very least. It seems ridiculous to not even have a debate on it. It also prohibits government payments to foreign nations unless authorised by Parliament. Patel stressed which they'll do anyway because they have a supermajority. Patel stressed the importance of including British Chagossians in any future sovereignty discussions, noting that they had been ignored and neglected by Labour. The problem I can see in doing this is that the international community will effectively start saying, oh, you're just using them to keep the islands for yourself and not do anything to actually help the Chagossians, say, return to Diego Garcia or the other islands. Which, is probably true. I don't bash this attempt to keep the Chagos Islands too much, but at the end of the day, I think it's a much better strategy to just call Starmer et al. Complete morons for effectively robbing the British people to pay off Mauritius for us to give away lands. It's a deal where we get literally nothing in return, so that is what I would focus on in terms of the argument, because frankly I don't think this is going to work, and I think it's too late to get the Chagos archipelago back. It's gone. It's too late. Blackpilled on it, I'm afraid. And if you are going to make noise about it, please focus on the economics of it, because I'll be frank with you, I don't think many people care about the Chagossians, and the fact they weren't negotiated with. I know that's a right-wing tactic at the moment, but ultimately it is more decolonisation strategy rather than anything a right-winger should be doing. On the other hand, I suppose we're desperate to try and keep this sovereignty of a land that is quite clearly strategically useful. So it's not something I'm going to bash anyone over the head too much over. And hell, if it works, it works. I definitely won't complain then. I just don't think it will. So yeah, that's pretty much everything I wanted to go through today, because it is nothing but depressing and I don't want to dwell on it too much. So I think I'll leave it there. Thursday, we've got Subnautica. Friday, we've got Laughing at the Guardian. No Tosh News next week, actually. We are having a week off of it, mainly because I will be unable to host it. But Subnautica will be returning anyway, and I might do the stream a different day, we'll see. But to be honest, it'll probably be a whole week hiatus. Videos out as and when I can make them. Again, you'll certainly get some every day this week, but next week there might be slightly less, but unforeseen circumstances, etc, etc. But I'll do my best to see what I can do to fill up the time slot. Right. If you enjoy what I do, do subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment. Great ways to help me out in the algorithm. And of course, if you feel like you can donate, please do become a channel member, or you can send super chats, super thanks. Great ways to help out the channel. Right, with that is everything I had for you for today. So once again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.